Welcome to Best of the Best, a show about having meaningful conversations with business-driven industry thought leaders to find out just what exactly makes them the best of the best. Fred Parrish is your host and most recently co-author, along with Michael E. Gerber of the brand new book, The E-Myth, Chief Financial Officer. Fred draws on his vast experience as an author, speaker, and financial expert to sit down with a variety of well-known guests each week and get to the bottom of what exactly makes them and their business successful. Welcome to the Best of the Best. And now, here's your host, Fred Parrish.
Hi, everyone. The title of this show is Tame the Machines, and we have Joe Woodard from Atlanta on the show with us today. And known Joe for quite a while. Joe, we really appreciate you being on. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Joe. He is the CEO of Woodard Events LLC, which includes education, coaching, resources, and a community for small business advisors and small business owners within the accounting industry. The Woodard vision is to transform small businesses through small business advisors. As an author, consultant, business coach, and national speaker, Joe has trained over 100,000 business and accounting professionals in areas of changing technology trends, practice development, strategic consulting, and how to maximize the use of accounting software in their practices. Since 2012, Joe has been recognized by Accounting Today as one of the top 100 influential people within the accounting profession. In 2008, Joe was recognized by CPA Practice Advisor as one of the top 40 up-and-coming thought leaders under the age of 40. Joe regularly publishes articles for Intuit Publications and for Insightful Accountant, and Joe has been featured repeatedly in Accounting Today and Accounting Web in both articles and in video interviews. Joe engages with the next generation of accounting professionals with visits to Florida Atlantic University, Nova Southeastern University, and other universities. In 2017, Woodard Events has partnered with the Latino community by the introduction of the first Spanish training track within their annual Scaling New Heights conference. Joe, again, thanks for being on.
It's great to be here, Fred. Looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, this is always good. We talked a few months ago, and it was just a great conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. So let's just jump right in. So to get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and generally what you do, so we can kind of frame the conversation.
Yeah, happy to. My background is as a small business advisor, and in that capacity, I've done a wide range of work, including technology implementation, accounting services, financial and business advisory services. But I realized around 2000, late 2000s, about 2009 or so, that to scale the impact I was having as a small business advisor, I needed to partner with more small business advisors. So I launched Scaling New Heights in 2009 as a conference designed to empower small business advisors to transform small business. And that gave birth to Woodard Network, which in turn gave birth to our coaching program, Woodard Institute, and a wide range of other services we now offer. We've stopped performing small business advisory services completely now, and we are solely focused on empowering others to perform those kinds of services for their clients. And it's all driven by that vision you talked about, Fred. We want to transform small business through small business advisors. It's not a vision statement, it's a vision. And as part of that vision, we seek every single day to empower small business advisors through those four major tenets you mentioned: coaching, education, resources, and community.
Oh, that's excellent. Excellent. And we've been to the Scaling New Heights conference several times. Great group. You've got a lot of great educational programs there. It's just really tremendous. You do a great job.
Well, thank you, Fred.
Okay, so technology is impacting every part of our lives these days, and accounting and finance really is no exception. And things that are happening now are really starting to change the way people look at doing those tasks. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, there is a technological shift that's underway right now, and we've seen it happen actually many times before in all the different industrial revolutions. I mean, the very first one displaced the ranching industry because people didn't need as many horses with this crazy horseless carriage thing that people invented. And then after that, it just, one industrial revolution after another until finally we're no longer insulated. With the first three, everybody from ranchers to factory workers were impacted, but it stayed in the realm of the blue collar worker or the labor category of work. But now the machines are getting intelligent.
Absolutely.
And with their intelligence comes a disruption of the knowledge-based worker, or what we would call the professional worker. That's unprecedented in the history of technology. And that means as a profession, the accountants must now be prepared to react.
Yeah, the world is going to look a lot different in 10 years, no doubt about it. So, okay, so let's talk a bit about how you can future-proof, quote unquote, any business or even accounting practices and similar types of organizations.
Well, the disruption is coming at a particular intersection point in the profession, and it's where the service work we're performing for our clients meets the ability of a computer to perform that or to automate that with very little human interaction. And I use the word service very carefully because I want to delineate in this conversation between service work and the other kinds of work I'm going to challenge the listeners to embrace. So if there's any service you're providing for your clients that is cyclical and repetitive, therefore predictable, it is going to be the first to be disrupted. And that means that as soon as the technologies that have already automated those cyclical and repeatable tasks become heavily commercialized, ubiquitous within the small business space, the disruption is happening and there's no ability to stop it. And I want to stress already present technologies. These are not theoretical. It is not a projection as to when they're going to come to the market. They're in market right now. Professional bookkeepers and very savvy small business owners are already automating 80% of the manual accounting process for bookkeeping,
right,
and automating over half for tax. It's not an if, it's a when. And the only thing that stands between the if and the when is ubiquity. Once they become prevalent in the market, the disruption is upon us. So identify the cyclical and repeatable. And the first step to future-proofing your practice is embrace the machines that automate that so you can be more efficient in what you're already doing for your clients. But the second step is to find a slate of services you can offer your clients that are neither cyclical nor repeatable.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. So let me ask you this. We are saying that the shift going forward is going to be not in the too distant future. How long has it taken for us to get from the old, I'm not going to go back to the ledger days, but from the original or the early versions of QuickBooks, for example, to the really more automated version of QuickBooks these days with the bank downloads and the credit card downloads and the assigning of accounts and so forth?
Well, these things typically run in about 10-year patterns. So, Fred, if I do go back a little bit pre-QuickBooks, just to kind of show you the 10-year pattern, you and I go back to the days where we know the term write-up, and we saw the industry doing a lot of write-up, and everything was after the fact, and it was originally done with the pencil ledgers, and sometimes the savvy accountants would send those off to run through macro computers so they could digitize their work, and those were the cutting edge, the bleeding edge folks back in the 80s.
Right.
So around the mid 80s, we were doing manual write-up, run through data processing centers at the end of each month. Then 10 years later, mid 90s, the PCs are now in the accounting firm, and we're using solutions like Peachtree and QuickBooks and real world accounting, usually on DOS systems or Windows 3.1 systems. And the microcomputer embrace is the accounting wave of the future. Those that got on the front of that wave did very well. Fast forward exactly 10 years to the year 2005, that's when these accounting systems began to do two things, very critical things. They began to emerge natively in the cloud, and they began to embrace an ecosystem of third-party products. That democratized that reach of code and that army of coders beyond the confines of what one company, Intuit or Sage or Microsoft, could accomplish. And it began to wiki that out, if you will, if you want to use that term loosely, to where now we have an entire universe of code talking to the general ledger systems. That expedited the path to automation significantly. Fast forward to 2015, you've got 80% of the accounting process automated.
Right.
So if the 10-year pattern sticks, by 2025, bookkeepers will be out of business.
Yeah, that's an amazing statement. That is an amazing statement. And you and I both know there are a lot of people who are not even thinking that way today.
No, they're not.
So hopefully they'll pay attention to this show and they'll get some information and they'll change their ways.
But I just did a Chicken Little moment, Fred, and every bookkeeper and maybe even some tax preparers that are listening right now are going, if he's even half right, it's time for me to panic. So I have an answer, and the answer is to embrace knowledge work. Right? I told you what not to do.
Right.
Stop just doing the cyclical and repeatable. But now I'm going to tell you what to do, and that's become a knowledge worker. So when I'm presenting on this topic in front of audiences, I'll pull out a Rubik's Cube. I should have brought one today and just held it up in front of the camera. But
right.
I'll pull out a Rubik's Cube, and I'll tell a true story that I gave a Rubik's Cube to my daughter, who was at that time 9 years old, because she wanted one because she wanted to play around with it. And she figured out, just like we all did as kids, that if you turn it in certain ways and you remember the pattern, you can reverse that pattern and you can look like you solved it. She's having a big time doing all of that. And then she messed up. And the Rubik's Cube is hopelessly not color-coded.
Right.
And so she brought it to me like 9-year-old girls are wont to do. And she handed it to her daddy, because daddy can fix all the problems in the universe. And she said, please fix this, with tears in her eyes. And I, of course, because I'm a daddy, I said, no problem, I've got this covered, and sent her off whistling a tune, skipping away. And now I had the problem. How do I solve the Rubik's Cube? So my answers are fourfold. And this is where the Rubik's Cube is going to connect to my problem of technological disruption.
Okay.
So hang with me, listeners.
Okay,
so
got it.
The Rubik's Cube, I had 4 different ways I could solve it. I could, if I wanted to, go to someone who knew how to solve Rubik's Cubes and have them solve the Rubik's Cube for me. We call that a service worker.
Right.
And rumor had it there was a kid up the street knew how to solve these things in just a few minutes. I want to look like a hero for my daughter. I've got a $20 bill in my pocket. If he value prices and doesn't charge by the hour, he can make a pretty good return right there.
No
20
doubt.
bucks, 5 minutes. Okay. So I got a little value pricing challenge in there too. But the reality is that's a service job. And I didn't go to the kid up the street. Had this been 20 years earlier when there was no internet, I might have gone up to the kid on the street. He would have made the 20 bucks because he's a service worker. But his service work has been displaced by YouTube. Because now there is, just pick it, a wide range of 12-year-olds out there on YouTube who've recorded themselves solving Rubik's Cubes and tell you step by step how to do it. And
Amazing.
It's funny because they're almost all about 12. So I'm watching YouTube, and I'm watching this kid teach me how to solve the Rubik's Cube. And I'll be if I don't do it, Fred. I got the whole Rubik's Cube solved. And then I decided, well, it's always been on my bucket list. Let me not just do it once, but let me memorize how to do it.
Right.
So I solved my daughter's Rubik's Cube problem in about an hour, and now I've taught myself, or the 12-year-old kid taught me, how to solve a Rubik's Cube, and I can do it now in under 2 minutes, throw any Rubik's Cube my way, and I got it done. Here's the difference. The kid up the street is a service worker. A service worker exercises their knowledge to perform a service for which they charge money. A knowledge worker transfers their knowledge from their brain to the other person's brain and figures out a different way to monetize that knowledge. So I looked at the YouTube video of the kid solving the Rubik's Cube, and I saw that he had over 1 million views. That kid is monetizing that YouTube video.
Absolutely.
If not, he has the ability to monetize that YouTube video. So the monetization of the exchange of knowledge is a little different. Sometimes it is direct where the client's paying for it. Most of the time it will be, but get creative with monetization. The point is the nature of the work. So a knowledge worker and a service worker, two different things. And this is where the confusion comes in. A lot of people think that the amount of knowledge required in order to perform a service is what matters. So the surgeon is more valuable than the nurse, and the nurse is more valuable than the nurse's assistant or candy stripe or whatever they're called these days. So, but really all that means is how much knowledge is required for me to perform my service. Knowledge work isn't about the knowledge required to perform a service. It's about the nature of the work. I could lie down on a surgeon's table, they could perform their service, and then I get off that table and I don't know anything about my body that I knew when I laid down.
Right.
But if I meet with a personal trainer or with a nutritionist or a good physical therapist, then I'm going to know more about my body when that person is done with me than I knew going in, because their role, even though it doesn't require as much knowledge, is about the exchange of knowledge. And that is something that the machines will not easily displace.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. Going back to the idea that people have to think differently, people being bookkeepers, accountants, CPAs. I was actually speaking the other day, and it was interesting. We had one CPA in the group, and I always ask if there are any accountants or CPAs in the group because they're not terribly happy to hear what I have to say. But it was interesting because the longer I talked, the more he turned his chair. And I mean literally almost to the point where he was turning his back to me. He did not want to hear what I had to say. And the idea was that you cannot continue to do those same things over and over again. And it's true with the way you view managing a company as with how you employ technology. So let's talk about some of the technology. There's machine learning, there is artificial intelligence, the blockchain technology. How do you see all that playing in?
Well, let's break down those disruptive technologies. We talked about them kind of at a high level. And I'll get to artificial intelligence last because it's kind of the most fun. But the OCR combined with machine learning those are the two legs of what we call data automation. And those are the ones that are most prevalent in the space right now. You see them in expense apps. You see them in applications that take scanned documents and parse them out, place them like invoices and bills, purchase orders and sales orders into accounting systems. And we're finding the majority of the automation takes place at that level. Now there are bank feeds too, but bank feeds work a little bit from machine learning. That's becoming more prevalent. Historically, they've worked mostly from user-based rules, but user-based rules are just a rudimentary form of machine learning.
Absolutely.
So between bank feeds, between the parsing of data, which just means reading it, digitizing it, interpreting the ink as words, and then figuring out what the words mean. That's the definition of parsing. You combine both of those together and a document becomes an input transaction. And so and you're finding in AP automation, the same kind of technologies also are being deployed. Watch that category to be the spearhead of disruption. Right on the heels of OCR plus machine learning, which, by the way, you know this, Fred, machine learning is not to be confused with artificial intelligence.
Right.
It's a component of AI, but it's not AI.
Right.
I believe the next big wave that's going to hit the small to medium-sized businesses is distributed ledger. I think it's the sleeping giant right now, or the tortoise, if you will, that's going to pass the hare here. Artificial intelligence has already hit enterprise full speed, but it won't make its way, in my opinion, to the SMB before distributed ledgers do. Now, distributed ledgers, aka blockchains,
Right.
Are misperceived by many to be just movers of cryptocurrency, and yes, that it was their first major application, but that is not the ultimate benefit they bring. Distributed ledgers are about the transfer of value across the internet. And in the migration of the internet, or the evolution of the internet, we had the internet of information. Then we had the internet of things, where the internet controls your thermostat in your house, or it controls your sprinkler system, to the internet of value. And in the internet of value, we can take anything, whether it's currency or whether it's copyrights or inventions, patents, and eventually it's even perceived by some that maybe the value of my identity as a human being even would be stored in a crypto into an unbreakable chain
Right.
of encoded digitized information. So if somebody wants to steal my identity in a blockchain universe, I challenge you to do so. It's uncrackable. Mark my words on that, and ask me the same question, Fred, 20 years from now, and it will prove out. But if you want to steal my identity today, all you really have to have are 3 pieces of information you can get out of my trash can. So that's how vulnerable we are. And that means that I'm protected, my copyrights are protected, all of my intellectual capital, intellectual properties are protected, as well as the money that I have in the bank, which is digitized in a form called cryptocurrency. And this is the other big misunderstanding. A lot of people think it's just a transmitter of Bitcoin. The other misunderstanding is they think it's some future technology that's theoretical. But Fred, if I wanted to right now, I could grab my mobile phone with simply your email address. Within 5 minutes, I could give you $10, $15, $20 or more in cryptocurrency, even if you've never experienced blockchain in your life. It would take 5 minutes for me to send it. It would take 10 minutes for you to receive it. And then from that point forward, it would take me 1 second to send it, 1 second for you to receive it. So it's prevalent. It's just not ubiquitous.
Right.
And what I've found is the gulf between prevalent and ubiquitous is very, very thin. As soon as small businesses start picking up on the fact that they can use blockchains to protect and transmit value, it's going to take a Herculean leap forward. And the last thing I want to say on blockchains, right now, to me, the gating factor is not the technology. You can get to it as simply as installing a mobile app or going to a website. The gating factor for blockchain is the consistency of cryptocurrency valuation. And just watch Bitcoin. Go out to a website and look at a chart that measures the value of any cryptocurrency, including Bitcoin, and it's oscillating, drastically by the day.
Right.
When that becomes steady, blockchains are going to become the norm, and then that begs the question: what's gonna create a steady value for cryptocurrency? And it's going to be a government, a bank, or a major corporation. If Amazon came out with a cryptocurrency, it would not oscillate any more than their stock price does. And when you see the corporations and or the governments getting involved in backing cryptocurrencies, just watch out. That will become the bank of today.
Yeah, and as you know, the SEC is already looking at how to regulate those offerings, and there's not a huge leap from there to the regulatory bodies. And we just need that one small bridge between where we are today and that use in small business. And as you say, it's just going to be, it's going to multiply like a virus. Okay, so let's just look real quickly at how we can get beyond the effect of what is coming. How can we build value if we are a bookkeeper today and we are a transaction type business? or maybe we are providing some advisory service. But all of that is going to change very soon. How do we get beyond that and find a way to make a living in the future?
Comes down to that knowledge work that I talked about. And that means that we have to change the equation of our practices, where up to this point, we've been able to use the equation of hourly rate times billable hours equals revenue. And then we come up with other formulas to make sure that we're profitable, right? As long as we're living by that formula, we have we're ripe for disruption for two reasons. One, because currently the services we're being performed are being automated, which means as we embrace automation, our number of billable hours goes down. But even if you say, I'm going to stay with the same kind of services and I'm going to flat fee them so that I become more profitable as I become more automated, that's still ripe for disruption because of the reasons we talked about before. Once the technologies that automate come from our hands straight into our client's hand, we get cut out of the middle. So short-term response is create a flat fee, automate under the surface, drive profits up, embrace the machines. That's response number one.
Okay. So is that value pricing or is that something different?
No, that's fixed fee pricing. See,
okay.
And I know that the terms tend to be used synonymously, but what a lot of people will do is they'll take the hourly work they're currently doing, say 70 for $10 a month with a client, and they'll say, well, let's flat rate this $750 a month, and now I'm value billing. I'm value pricing. No, you're not. You're flat pricing.
Right.
Okay, because to value price, you must create value, and price is a percentage under the wealth that you generate. You haven't generated any new wealth here. All you've done is regulate how much you build. Now, that's still important, Fred. I don't want to diminish the importance of it, because once I flat that out at $750 a month, I can embrace the efficiencies of the machines, drive the amount of hours necessary to perform that work way down. If we just follow the math at 80% automation, it's taking me 10 hours a month. It's going to now take me 2 hours a month. And I'm spending 2 hours a month plus a little bit of software cost, billing $750. My margins just went way up.
Right.
But that's a short-term answer till the client realizes, or until it becomes realizable for the client to embrace those machines with the same ease they can embrace me.
Right.
So right on the heels of flat feeing and embracing the machines, start layering value work. Forget value pricing for a minute. People say they have a problem value pricing, and then my next question is, well, what wealth are you generating? And they look at me like a deer in the headlights. What do you mean? Okay, how are you increasing the client's wealth? And then when they say they're not increasing the client's wealth, I'm going to say, well, there's your value pricing problem. Okay, so I know it sounds simple, but that's the missing piece. A lot of people fail to point out.
Well, it's a change in mindset, right? It's a change,
of mindset,
in the way you look at it.
It's a change of behavior,
right,
on my part, that results in a change of behavior on the client's part, and only then do I have something to price. So what I tell people is flat fee, get those margins way up, get your amount of sweat way down, take that extra capacity, and rather than just scaling out the service business at that increased margin, which is extremely tempting to do, maybe you can scale it with additional employees, that's fine, but don't distract yourself. Use that additional bandwidth you've created to go to your client base and start asking the right questions of the client. Why did revenue go up or down? Why is gross profit margin increasing or decreasing?
Right.
How are things trending over a 3-year pattern? How are you benchmarking with others in your industry? What are the key performance indicators that we need to be looking at to make sure that you are in a growth pattern with your business? And, you know, that's going to start creating value. And it's the easiest thing in the world to sell, Fred. Value pricing is so easy to sell because you say, let me come alongside you for a year, and then let's increase your wealth together. All I want is 10% of the increase of your wealth over that 12-month period of time. And then I want 5% of the sustained increase in wealth that you benefit in year 2.
Yeah, and that is really where business owners need to be. I mean, they need to be looking forward and thinking about how they can improve their operations to gain leverage on their bottom line. Okay, so
Absolutely.
You help a lot of people figure out how to do this. You have training programs, you have scaling new heights, a lot of things that you are doing at Woodard. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about what that is, and then tell us where people can get more information before we sign off here.
Yep, absolutely. So the Woodard Institute is our most developed path to this kind of a coaching practice, an advisory practice. It walks you through where you are, no matter where you are in this. It could be that you don't even know what a quick ratio is. And that's fine. No judgment on our part, no embarrassment on your part. Come in wherever you are at whatever level of knowledge you have. And then we're going to take you from that point and move you to the place where you can sit confidently, not just in the back office of the client's business, but in the boardroom of the client's business, look them in the eye and have something meaningful to say. All right, that's Woodard Institute. And that is not a quick journey, Fred. You know this very well because this is your world.
Absolutely.
That takes time to groom an advisor to that point, but we take the time, we come alongside you, and it isn't years, it's months before you can start reaping some of the goodness from that pricing accordingly. But if that is a little intensive for you right now, the other way to engage us is scaling new heights. Fred mentioned it at the beginning of the show. The theme of this year's show is the transformative advisor. Not every show focuses with this kind of laser intensity on the value prop of knowledge work, but this one happens to do so. It's in Salt Lake City, June 16 through 19. And then between now and then, we're offering our first ever Scaling New Heights online experience.
Oh, that's great, Joe.
On the airplane, you don't have to take the 3 days out of the office. Right from the convenience of your desk at a fraction of the cost for you on the registration, you can get a lot of the goodness that comes from our training tracks. And we're going to be offering that the second week of December 2018.
And you have multiple tracks that people can choose from. So there's a very wide variety of sessions they can sit in on and just get a tremendous amount of information. Joe, you do a great job. Website?
Woodard.com.
That's easy. Well, Joe, listen, I really want to thank you again. I always love these conversations. You're just a wealth of knowledge. And, you have a very interesting way of describing the world that we will live in. And everybody needs to start paying attention. You're absolutely right. We're even at the Profit Experts, we're even playing around with some artificial intelligence things. So, if we can do it, a lot of smarter people out there who are going to be doing it, and the world is going to change. So thanks again, Joe. Really appreciate it.
Great to be here, Fred.
Thanks for listening to The Best of the Best. To find out more about Fred, his latest book, or his acclaimed automated CFO software, The Profit Beacon, follow the show on Facebook at facebook.com/theprofitbeacon or visit his website at www.theprofitbeacon.com for exciting offers.